Thank you for watching Movie on 2. Join us tomorrow night at 9 for the monumental film, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Saturday, 2 great National Geographic specials. First, Dive to the Edge of Creation, a fantastic world of unknown life and vitality. Next, They Reigned Over the Seas, magnificent vessels dominating the travel and trade of the early 20th century. Visit the superliners, twilight of an era. Then, the true story of a nation gripped by fear, driven by a diabolical vision of humanity. Based on William Shirer's chronicle of German tragedy, watch The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Explore our world, present and past, Saturday night beginning at 7, the Silver Season on Channel 2. KTCA TV, Channel 2. The following program was recorded earlier for rebroadcast at this time. Night Times is a production of KTCA, Channel 2. From the Twin Cities, this is Night Times Magazine with Gary Gilson.
Good evening. I'll bet if I polled my colleagues in this television news business, they'd agree that the hardest stories to do, to make interesting, are stories about schools. I mean, classrooms are so visually static, right? Well, maybe classrooms are, but hearts and minds are not. And we have some exceptional stories about schools for you tonight. Public schools in this country are suffering from stress. People accuse schools of failing. Schools reply, the whole society is failing. How can you expect schools to bail out the rest of you and educate your children besides? There's no doubt that schools are being asked to do too much. But there's also no doubt that school officials and teachers are very defensive about what they've been hired to produce and too often fail to produce. Students with a mastery of basic skills. The other night in Coon Rapids, I moderated the Governor's Forum on Responsibility in Public Education. And while there were plenty of people there saying, we can't do the job if you keep cutting school budgets, there were also plenty of people there saying, if we're creative enough, we can improve learning with the money we have now. So education is a political battlefield. I haven't even mentioned special interest groups who want certain courses taught or who want certain books banned. On tonight's program, let's leave the politics aside and stick to the basics. And the question is, how well are they taught and learned? First, on tonight's show, we'll meet an outstanding high school teacher and find out what works for him and his students. Next, the feisty philosopher Mortimer Adler tells us why he thinks the schools generally are poorly organized and how he thinks they should be changed. And then we'll visit a grade school and experience it through the eyes of one of its pupils, a charmer named Ian. Now our first story. Every year, the Minnesota Education Association, one of the teachers' unions, asks people to nominate candidates for a Teacher of the Year competition. After this year's initial screening, 91 nominees started meeting judges' panels around the state until the number dwindled to 8. Last week, this year's winner was chosen. Now I'd like you to meet one of the final 8. He is Dan Jensen, a math teacher at Mariner High School in White Bear Lake. Now take a step into his world.
Attention, Mariner shoppers. As you all know, this weekend's our haunted house. I'd like you to take a moment to recall every time you've ever heard a noise in the night, every time you've ever been scared. It'll be open this Thursday and Friday from 7 o'clock to the bewitching hour of midnight. The cost is only $1.50, and at no extra charge, you'll meet our werewolves.
They growl, they howl, yes, they slice, they dice, they even eat Juliana fries. But wait, there's more.
Isn't this just the way you remember high school? But wait, there's more.
Problem number 3 was $147.50. Number 7, f of x is equal to 3. Number 14, negative 21 halves or negative 10 and 1/2. All right, number 1 was...
I've never been in a classroom that has the atmosphere of relentlessness like yours. You just keep going.
Well, yeah, I guess I've got, certain things that I want to accomplish. One of my favorite sayings in my thinking is that mathematics is not a spectator sport. You can't sit there and just watch me do it every day. You're not going to learn any math. You've got to become involved. And I feel that students need to learn that, hey, I can do these type of things, that I can have success in mathematics. And I really feel that they can. and that they do.
Dan Jensen didn't know what would bring him success when he was growing up on a farm near Litchfield, Minnesota. But he did know it wasn't farming. He went off to St. Cloud State and decided on teaching. He's been at it since 1959, in White Bear Lake since '63. He makes about $30,000 a year. That's not enough to pay for private college educations for his 3 children, but he and his wife have taught their kids self-reliance, and the kids pretty much pay their own way. Another Mariner teacher, Dick Mackey, has been working with Dan Jensen for 15 years.
He does a lot of work, and it's kind of like undercover work. I mean, he's not outspoken about how well things go, but in the classroom, he's really a tough person. You know, he really does a nice job.
I try to be firm with my students. You know, let them know where I stand and what's expected out of them. But still, we can have fun. And students should have fun and enjoy it, but there's a time for hard work also. I expect a lot out of them, and I feel if I don't expect a lot, I'm not going to get much. And I do expect things out of them, and they do produce.
How were you doing in math when you had him?
Not too good. I wasn't too good at all, and I learned a lot from him. He helped me understand a lot more about math.
See, that's too big. It's 333, I think it is.
Oh, I forgot to put the point in there.
That sound right now?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Mark.
Is there any extra credit I can do?
Being a good teacher and helping you understand, once you start understanding something, you don't want to give up. And he helped me understand.
Chris Glover is the student who nominated Dan Jensen as Teacher of the Year. Last year's winner, her father. She says there are 3 things about Dan Jensen that make him special and effective.
He likes what he's doing, and he cares about a person individually. I mean, he understands, and he explains things, and he makes you understand. He makes sure you understand before he goes on to the next thing.
You know, to be nominated White Bear Lake Teacher of the Year and to be one of the 8 finalists for Minnesota State Teacher of the Year, that's a humbling experience. I don't feel that I'm, you know, the best teacher in White Bear Lake, but I represent a lot of good teachers in White Bear Lake, and I'm representing a lot of good teachers in the state of Minnesota, and that's how I look at that. I guess it's just given me a shot in the arm, a motivator, and I think those things are important. Anytime, sometimes I guess day after day, 5 hours after, 5 hours of with kids all the time, sometimes you get worn out, and you need a little boost. And this has given me a boost. But I guess I'm enthused about teaching mathematics. I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun. And I believe in having fun with kids. Okay, scholars, let's go.
Dan Jensen loves a few other things besides teaching math. He loves hunting, fishing, and carpentry, and he loves teaching Sunday school to adults. He spends considerable time at student activities after school to get to know kids better and to let them know he cares about what they care about.
Now, when you teach 150 or 140 students, that's kind of difficult to get to know everyone personally. But that is my goal. I find that if I take an interest in my students, they in turn will take more of an interest in what I have to say. And those things encourage me and motivate me, I guess.
You ever get stumped?
Sure. But that's kind of fun. And I think the students love when I get stumped too, if I can't figure something out. But usually we'll figure it out in time. And usually I can figure it out in some cases. I guess some of the extra credit problems, I can really get stumped on, on those type of things. I just don't give those, though.
Dan Jensen was not chosen Teacher of the Year. The winner was Thomas Gertz, a junior high speech and geography teacher in Staples up in north central Minnesota. And you know what? He said the same thing Dan Jensen said. I'm not the best teacher. I just represent a lot of good ones. A lot of people think there aren't enough good teachers and there isn't enough good learning. Among these people is Mortimer Adler, the philosopher and educator. He has written a book in behalf of a group of scholars urging elimination of elective courses and career-oriented courses in favor of a new approach to basic skills. It is called the Paideia Proposal, from a Greek word meaning the upbringing of a child. Simply put, you can visualize the proposal as 3 columns. First, the acquisition of an organized knowledge through lectures, textbooks, and other aids covering language, arts, math and science, and social science. The second column, development of intellectual skills through coaching and exercises. And third, enlarged understanding of ideas and values through Socratic questioning and active participation by students. I think most of us, when we consider children in schools, focus first on teachers. I asked Mortimer Adler whether under the existing system in our schools, teachers are doing something wrong.
It isn't that they're doing something wrong. The whole school organization is wrong. I mean, the teacher is put upon. The teacher is given a job that can't be done. They're poorly trained in the schools of education. They are not given, in many of the schools, the principal doesn't have the authority, the public doesn't give the principal the authority to maintain decent behavior, which makes the problem of conduct a very onerous one indeed for the teacher, and the curriculum is not right. You see, it is the system that's wrong rather than the teachers, though the teachers, I think, need to be improved, both in terms of their training and in terms of what they are asked to do. I think they should be better paid, and really, teacher compensation is not competitive with other more attractive walks of life, and as a result, we're not getting the best quality of person in that career.
Well, the state of Minnesota is in terrible financial trouble all the way across the board. To be proposing increases in pay for public employees like teachers at a time like this seems unrealistic.
I know, but I have to also say that I think if this reform were put into practice, the total cost of schooling would be less rather than more.
How?
Because we would remove so many things from the curriculum that are now there that are costly. We might even reduce the number of teachers. I'm not saying the number of teachers is right. You see, I think for lecturing, for lecture purposes, closed-circuit television, let's take American history for a moment. Let's take the best lecturer in this country on American history. You could pipe it into every classroom, and the classroom teacher could follow it up with questions and answer questions, whereas the lecture given by the great master of the matter would be almost cost-free.
Sure, there are a lot of subjects being taught in schools now that, as you say, shouldn't be. But they do teach English. So why are so many students leaving school without the ability to write a sentence or spell a word?
They do not teach writing. They do not teach reading. They do not. It can only be taught by coaching, which is they don't know how to coach. Look, have you ever learned or acquired the habit of a bodily skill, athletic skill? What sport do you play?
Oh, a number of them, but
tennis.
Tennis,
right.
sure.
You know what a tennis coach does?
Yes.
Stands alongside. Would you please follow through? Keep your eye on the ball. Weight on your right foot. Square your shoulders. Do it over. Now, you didn't do it right. Do it over again. Do it over again. Now, the intellectual skill is acquired exactly in the same way. Write that composition over. That sentence is badly constructed. This is the way you do it. What? Put that adjective here, not there. And you keep on doing that until the child forms the habit of writing well. It can't be done in a classroom of 35. It requires, how would you like a tennis? I've been to tennis clinics with my wife where the tennis coach handles 6 people on the court, but not more than 6. You can't have 35 on the court. Well, coaching requires a different kind of classroom, different kind of relation to teacher and student, see, and different methods. And coaching, I went to school in New York City before First World War. And I was able to write reasonably well by the time I was 10 or 11. I could read very well by the time I was 10. I was coached. I was not, and coaching has, because of the size of the population, because of the way teachers are trained, coaching has disappeared from the schools, and that's why children can't read, write, speak, listen, observe, measure, calculate, estimate, and perform the intellectual operations of the scientific method.
But when I went to school in the 40s and 50s, the classes were 25 or 30 students, and somehow or other our English teachers taught us to diagram sentences and criticized our writing.
No one diagrams sentences anymore.
How did it vanish?
I've been asked that, and I'm going to have to answer your question the way I've answered it before. I've been asked over again, what caused the decline? And my answer is no one knows the answer to that question. The number of factors that have interacted to produce the extraordinary decline are so complex, and their interaction is so complex, I think no one can give a well-authenticated story of how it happened. But it has happened. It's disappeared.
But it must be some pockets in this country where it still goes on.
Very, very few. There are rare teachers here and there.
That's what I mean.
Well, but it's less than 1% of the whole. So it's a very serious. It's serious for many reasons. Industry is put upon by the kind of labor force it has to hire. The Army and Navy are shocked beyond words at the kind of recruits they get. We could not defend this country in a conventional war. We wouldn't have the troops to handle the weapons. It's very serious indeed. And they're not citizens. I mean, they're not trained for citizenship. They're not trained. And the least of all, the most important thing I've got to say about this is the fallacy, the error that lurks in the backs of the minds of most teachers, most educators, most parents, is the simple falsehood that education is accomplished in school. No one ever gets educated in school. No one ever can get educated in school because youth, immaturity, is an insuperable obstacle to becoming educated. You only become educated in adult life in your more mature years, and the best schools, if there were good schools, or if the schools were at their best, which they never are, but if they were at their best, the most they could ever do is prepare someone by giving them the skills of learning and the incentives and zest of learning to go on learning in adult life. If they don't do that, it's all a waste anyway. But you see, there's another aspect of the thing. Our educational system now is not just undemocratic, it's anti-democratic. It's two-track. It's getting worse. It divides the children into those who are not, shall I say, bound for further education, the job trained and get them out of school. The others are treated differently. Our society, our kind of society, our fundamental commitment to human equality and equality of educational opportunity requires us to say that all the children shall have the same quality of schooling as well as the same quantity. Giving them the same quantity isn't enough. Mr. Hutchins used to say again and again, absolutely rightly, I think, that the best education for the best is the best education for all. And that's what we're trying to say.
Classless society.
That's right. That's why the flight of the middle-class child of the private schools is so dangerous. You've got to get a class-divided society, the public school crowd and the private school crowd. If this reform were to be enacted nationwide, were to succeed, the ideal behind it would be to have no private schools except for parochial purposes. We shouldn't have that kind of class division in our kind of society.
How much of this Paideia proposal comes from a sense of what it is that those people want for their children?
I think greatly. I think everybody wants, not everybody, there are some people, unfortunately, who think that the only goal in life is to make a lot of money. For them, nothing. I can say I have nothing to say. If that's their only goal, then they're wasting their time in school. They can learn how to make a lot of money quicker outside of school. But if they understand that a good human life is a life in which the person grows mentally, morally, and spiritually by experience, by thought, by learning, then this kind of schooling is for them.
Isn't there a barrier to this proposal from people who say that the kind of education you want to see in public schools isn't practical?
I don't know what the word practical, if it means, does it pay? Let me answer your question very, very simply. Man is the only animal who isn't born with a very specific defensive armor, doesn't have claws, doesn't have sharp teeth, doesn't have prehensile tail, whatnot. He has hands and a mind. And the mind is the user of the tools, the hand is the instrument of the mind. A liberal education, a general liberal education, makes man what he should be, very flexibly adaptive to. Man is the only global animal adaptive by intelligence to every climate, every external circumstance. And so actually, though I would not like to defend liberal education on practical grounds, it's so much more practical than an illiberal vocational, specialized vocation, that it's the way to get ahead in the world is, in fact.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about you. If somebody gave you a form to fill out, what would you put in the place where it says occupation?
Well, first, philosopher. Second, editor. Third, author. Fourth, educator.
Okay, let's talk about philosopher. There aren't very many.
No, there aren't.
So
there are lots of professors of philosophy, but there's a difference between being a philosopher and being a professor of philosophy, in my judgment. Philosophy has lost its position in our culture because philosophy has also become a highly technical, specialized discipline, instead of being, as I think it should be, for everybody.
Do you talk to very many ordinary people in your everyday life?
I don't talk to anybody else. I almost never talk to a purely academic audience.
Are ordinary people intimidated by the fact of talking to a philosopher?
Not at all.
I'm surprised.
All the last books I've written have been written for ordinary people. In fact, that's my whole effort. Aristotle for Everybody, How to Think About God, 6 Great Ideas, which is going to be the subject of this Moyer's program coming up on PBS, The Angels in Us, the book I've just finished called How to Listen, How to Speak, How to Listen. They're all written so that any human being can read them, not just... In fact, I wouldn't write a book for professors to read.
Where do you get your energy from now?
I've always had it, only I use it more now. Since I've been 60, I've worked harder each year successively. And as I've said earlier, and other people, my health comes from taking no exercise whatsoever.
Like Satchel Paige, avoid running at all costs.
Mr. Hudson used to say, whenever the impulse to exercise comes over me, I lie down until it passes away.
Well, I saw a gleam in your eye when you mentioned tennis.
Oh, I used to play tennis. I used to play tennis.
And you've stopped?
I stopped about the age of 50.
Why?
I began to develop a tennis elbow, and I wasn't as spry on the court as I used to be, so I stopped. I know that King Gustavus Adolphus played until he was 90, the old king of Sweden, but I gave it up. I walk to work and walk home. That's about all I do. But I think I'm actually busier now. They're busier this year than I've been any previous year of my life.
Where do you find yourself learning things from now?
But by teaching, by writing, by talking, by traveling, by reading.
Mortimer Adler discusses 6 great ideas in the new public television series with Bill Moyers, Friday nights at 9:30. The ideas are truth, beauty, and goodness, liberty, equality, and justice. Tonight it's goodness. Now we want to delight you with a look at grammar school life through the eyes of a child. We know this story delighted the MEA. It gave producer Hope Atterbury a School Bell Award for excellence in television reporting of education for this story of a young boy experiencing the last days of his neighborhood school about to close forever because of budget cuts. Listen to Ian tell you about it himself.
Northrop School is near Lake Nokomis in south Minneapolis. There are kids from kindergarten through 6th grade here. I would probably be going through 6th grade at Northrop, but the school is closing, so I can't. My name is Ian Berry. I am in 2nd grade. I've been going here all my life except nursery school, but I forget all that. There are 31 kids in my class, 32 counting the teacher. She's nice. Her name is Fran.
Pam's room is going to have clay and games. Peggy's room is...
We were just told, through the media that the school was being closed. I had some mixed feelings. And when I came in the next day, I think the children felt the same way. We had to sit down and talk about it. And because they weren't quite sure why it was closing, why our school, why do I have to go to another school? Why can't someone else? And I try and tell the kids that change sometimes is okay. You manage to make an adjustment.
We're looking at 9 sets of 3. Okay, how else can we look at that? 9 sets of 3.
9 times 3?
That's right.
My favorite subjects are drawing and math. We're doing multiplication and division in math. What's 9 times 9? 9 times 9.
Oh, 81.
My reading books and spelling books and pencils are in my tote. This is a tote. We have it because we don't have desks. This is where I put my stuff. Drawing, math, pencil, handwriting, reading. We get to make choices every day about what things we want to do, except for when we don't get our work done. Then we have no choice. We have to do our work. You can choose to go to study hall, outside, and sometimes games. Those choices are called options. In music, we play instruments. My favorite instrument is the auto harp, but sometimes you can't get your favorite instrument. Then you have to play what there's left.
All the glockenspiels together. Oh, who is the xylophone I just heard? If you don't know when to use it, you will lose it. You're not a glockenspiel. Ready?
I don't really like music. At 12:30, we go downstairs for lunch. You get a hot pack and a cold pack. I take milk. Inside the cold pack, they usually have something like pineapple, applesauce, oranges, apples, ketchup, all different kinds of things. Same thing with the hot pack. Hot pack, cold pack, and milk all go together in one. Tall George.
I feel this is one of the schools they should have kept open, but we're not the ones that make that decision.
We heard they were going to close a lot of buildings. We didn't know which ones they were exactly until it came up. But then they said a few years they're going to close this building, and all of a sudden they changed it again, so I didn't really take it too serious. And they got to put a new burner and then paint the whole thing, and all of a sudden they decided to close it again, so I was kind of surprised.
This week I'm on closet patrol. If I find someone's stuff on the floor or if their tote is messy, I give them a warning. When you get 2 warnings, you stay after lunch or after school and clean the closet. This is the star chart. If you're good, you get a star, and when you get 10 stars, you get a prize from the prize box. If you're bad, you get a star taken away. If something happens in the classroom, first you get a warning, then you put your head down, then you go see Barb.
Most people who visit here, you know, when they look at the building itself, they tend to say it's sort of just what you imagine an elementary school ought to look like, or sort of, if you were digging into your imagination, what you sort of remember your school kind of was like. It sort of meets your image of the past. When I heard that it was going to be closed, I felt sad. Okay. I knew, however, that, that it has to happen. I mean, schools have to close, or we can't run an educational program.
Northrop isn't going to be a school anymore because the state does not have enough money to pay all the schools. 18 other schools are closing. A lot of kids will be going to the Anderson School. I've only seen Anderson from the outside, but I'm probably going to go there too. I don't know if I'll miss Northrop or not when it closes because it hasn't happened yet, but I think I will.
Now Ian goes to the Seward School in Minneapolis, and he says he likes it a lot. I think we ought to set our investigators loose and find out what happened to the Georges. That's our show for tonight. I'm off to Washington, D.C. this weekend to cover the Vietnam Veterans Memorial events and talk to Minnesota vets, and you'll see my report here 1 week from tonight. Have a good
2.
Hello, I'm Denise Johnson. Historically, Minnesota's economy was considered recession-proof. In the face of a continuing national recession and a record state deficit, this belief has been challenged, if not shattered. Minnesota Wellspring is a consortium of business, labor, education, and government leaders who believe the state's future lies in creation of jobs and adapting to the technology of the future. We'll talk with representatives of Wellspring about this future and the role that they hope to play in it. Please join us.
You're watching KTCA TV, Channel 2, St. Paul, Minneapolis. As a community-supported, non-commercial public television station, KTCA serves the entire Twin Cities area with programming designed to inform, entertain, and educate. KTCA TV is owned and operated by the Twin Cities Public Television Corporation and operates on a federally assigned frequency of 54 to 60 megahertz. Programming originates from the KTCA TV studios at 1640 Como Avenue, St. Paul, and is fed via microwave link KAS-23 to our transmitting site in Shoreview. If you would like to comment on our broadcast program schedule or operations, please write KTCA TV, 1640 Como Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55108, or call 646-4611 during business hours. We now conclude our scheduled broadcasts for today. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to be with us again tomorrow.